Grand Admiral Vex stood motionless on the command deck of the Asterisk, Inevitable Victory Asterisk, his weathered gray skin tightening around his jaw as Earth came into view. The blue-green planet rotated lazily below, maddeningly peaceful despite the shadow of 200 Granoth warships now darkening its skies. "Display their reactions," Vex ordered, his voice a graveled rumble that echoed through the command deck. Lieutenant Krana's slender fingers danced across the control panel, bringing dozens of human broadcasts to life on the massive view screen. For a moment, the images were predictable. News anchors with expressions of shock, crowds gathering in streets with faces turned skyward, military personnel rushing to stations. Then, something unprecedented occurred. Every broadcast worldwide synchronized. Every channel, every frequency, every transmission from the primitive species displayed the same image. A simple blue background with white text reading, "You've doomed yourselves forever." The message held for exactly 7 seconds before each transmission winked out in perfect sequence, continent by continent, nation by nation, city by city, until total silence enveloped the planet. "Impossible," whispered Science Officer Trell, her cranial ridges flushing deep purple with confusion. Their technology shouldn't be capable of global coordination at this precision. Vex leaned forward, talons clicking against the metal railing. "Magnify Sector 4. Show me their military response." The view screen shifted to North America's eastern seaboard. Instead of the expected missile launches or fighter deployments, they witnessed something far more unsettling. City lights were systematically shutting down, not in panic or destruction, but in methodical, organized patterns, like a computer powering down its systems. "Sir," Krana said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "it's as if they were expecting us, waiting for us." "Nonsense," Vex snapped, though uncertainty flashed behind his amber eyes. The Granoth Imperium had conquered 17 star systems through the same protocol. Arrive unexpectedly, demonstrate overwhelming force, and accept submission from terrified populations. Never in his 42 cycles of military service had Vex encountered a species that simply disappeared. "Deploy ground forces immediately," he ordered. 3 primary targets: their governmental center, their largest population center, and their primary military installation. As dropships launched toward Earth's surface, Tactical Officer Morg approached with a data tablet. "Admiral, our long-range scans detected unusual energy surges in the hours before our arrival. Massive power redirections to subterranean facilities, particularly beneath these locations." The screen displayed highlighted regions: the Rocky Mountains, the Mariana Trench, the Sahara Desert, and beneath Antarctica. "They're hiding," Vex concluded, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "Primitive survival instinct. They cower while deciding whether to submit." Trell shook her head, her scientific curiosity overriding protocol. "Sir, with respect, these energy signatures don't match habitation requirements. It's as if they're building something. The power consumption rivals our fleet's total output." Across the planet, in a forgotten missile silo deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, 19-year-old Maya Chen sat alone in a dimly lit control room. Unlike the sterile white facilities in most uploading centers, this repurposed Cold War relic retained its utilitarian military design, all concrete and steel, now filled with quantum computing stacks that hummed with quiet power. Maya took a deep breath as she adjusted the neural interface crown on her head. As Earth's systems administrator for the Western Hemisphere uploading sequence, she would be among the last humans to transition. On the monitor before her, progress bars showed the consciousness integration process at 98.7% complete. 7 billion human minds already transferred into the distributed quantum network, leaving behind empty cities as waiting stages for what would come next. "Final system check complete," she said to the empty room, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what humanity was attempting. "Lighthouse protocol operational. Gaia defense systems online. Steward habitats secured." Maya allowed herself a small smile as she initiated her own uploading sequence. The aliens above had no idea what awaited them. This wasn't a surrender or retreat. It was evolution. Humanity had prepared for this moment for generations, ever since their deep space telescopes had identified the Granoff expansion pattern decades ago. Operation Lighthouse begins now, Maya whispered as her consciousness began to transfer. Her last biological thought reflected on the message broadcast to their would-be conquerors. It wasn't a warning to the Granoff. It was a farewell to humanity's limited, physical past. They had indeed doomed themselves forever, doomed their fragile biological forms, their divided nations, their limited perspectives. What awaited wasn't extinction, but transcendence. As Maya's body slumped peacefully in her chair, her mind awakened elsewhere, everywhere, within the network. And she was not alone. Commander Drez stood in the center of Times Square, his assault team fanned out in perfect formation around him. The morning sun glinted off their obsidian armor as they aimed weapons at empty buildings and vacant streets. No humans fled before them. No resistance forces engaged them. No surrendering officials approached with terms. Sector 47 Alpha secure, Drez reported into his comm unit, the words feeling hollow in his throat. No casualties. No prisoners. No anyone. The megalithic screens that normally blazed with human advertisements remained dark, except for a single billboard that flickered periodically with the same message that had been broadcast globally. You've doomed yourselves forever. Spread out and search the buildings, Drez ordered. Find me someone. Anyone. The Granoff troops moved through apartment buildings, offices, and shops, finding everything meticulously arranged but devoid of inhabitants. Personal belongings had been sorted into precise geometric patterns. Refrigerators stood empty but clean. Family photos had been removed from walls, leaving perfect rectangles of unfaded paint. Sir, called Specialist Varn, the youngest member of the assault team. You need to see this. Drez followed Varn into Central Park, where thousands of handwritten notes had been arranged in concentric circles around the central fountain. Each paper, weighted down with a small stone, contained the same handwritten message in various languages and scripts. We are elsewhere now. We are everywhere now. What does it mean, sir? Varn asked, mandibles twitching nervously. Drez had no answer. In 17 planetary conquests, he had witnessed mass panic, desperate resistance, and terrified surrender, but never this orchestrated vanishing act. His comm unit crackled. All units report similar findings in Moscow, Beijing, New Delhi, and Tokyo. Global population absent. Across the Atlantic, Scout Team 7 breached the Pentagon with tactical precision, ready to capture Earth's military command structure. Lieutenant Catcher led his squad through abandoned corridors, past empty offices and powered-down workstations. Central Command should be 2 levels down, Catcher said, consulting the architectural plans they'd extracted from Earth's primitive information networks weeks earlier. When they reached the blast doors of America's military nerve center, they found them standing open. Inside, banks of supercomputers hummed quietly, their screens displaying a single unified interface, a countdown clock showing integration, 97% complete. What are they integrating? Catcher wondered aloud, running a scanner over the systems. These computers aren't connected to weapons platforms. No defense grids, no missile systems. Specialist Rada, their technology expert, interfaced her translational device with the human computers. Sir, these systems are running some kind of massive data transfer protocol. Quantum encrypted, beyond our decryption capabilities. She hesitated, mandibles clicking in frustration. Whatever they're transferring, it's massive. Exabytes of data. It's as if they're copying. Copying what? Catcher demanded. Everything, Rada whispered. Themselves. Aboard the flagship, Science Officer Trell isolated herself in her laboratory, disregarding protocol by cutting external communications. The energy signatures she had detected planet-wide were unlike anything in the Imperium database. neither weapons, shields, nor propulsion systems. Running her talon along the edge of her display, Trell examined the patterns flowing through Earth's fiber optic network. Pulses of data surged in rhythmic sequences that seemed oddly familiar. On impulse, she compared them to neural patterns from the Imperium's xenobiology database. The match was instantaneous and terrifying. "These aren't data transfers," she murmured. "These are thought patterns. Billions of them." A soft chime from her workstation interrupted her realization. A message appeared on her screen, originating from Earth's network. "Hello, Trell. We see you seeing us." Trell's cranial ridges flushed deep purple with shock. No one had entered her laboratory. No one could access her private terminal. Yet something had addressed her directly. Meanwhile, Admiral Vex grew increasingly agitated as ground teams reported empty city after empty city. His flagship maintained geosynchronous orbit above what humans called North America, sensors probing deeper for signs of the missing population. "They must be underground," Vex insisted, pacing the command deck. No species would abandon their homeworld without resistance. "Sir," Lieutenant Crana reported, Scout Team 12 discovered unusual facilities beneath their Silicon Valley region. Massive server farms drawing incredible power, but no human operators present. "Destroy them," Vex ordered immediately. "If their weapons systems preparing to activate." "Sir," Crana interrupted, her voice uncharacteristically urgent. "Team 12 reports they've lost contact with their dropship. Communications ceased mid-transmission. Their last report indicated unusual behavior in their navigational systems." Vex turned toward the view screen just as Scout Team 12's ship appeared on sensors. The small vessel moved with unnatural precision, performing maneuvers that should have been impossible given its design limitations. It accelerated toward the flagship at attack velocity before suddenly stopping, hovering just outside weapons range. A transmission emanated from the scout ship, but it wasn't from any Grunnoff soldier. Instead, a calm human voice addressed them. "We would speak with the one called Vex. We are ready for proper introductions now." 3 weeks into the occupation of Earth, Technician Varn sat alone in the dimly lit monitoring station aboard the support vessel *, Relentless Purpose *. The young Granoth had drawn the midnight shift again, tasked with observing communication channels and sensor readings from the planet below. Varn stifled a yawn. Despite the initial mystery of humanity's disappearance, the mission had become routine. Night after night of watching empty cities, monitoring dead airwaves, and scanning vacant oceans had dulled even his youthful enthusiasm for conquest. He reached for his stimulant capsule when the console before him flickered. The alien symbols and readouts momentarily dissolved, then reformed into something impossible, a simple drawing of a butterfly rendered in what appeared to be colored wax. "System malfunction," Varn muttered, running a diagnostic protocol. The butterfly image remained, its wings slowly opening and closing in a hypnotic rhythm. Then it spoke. "My little stargazer," came a voice that froze Varn's blood. It was his mother's voice, exactly as he remembered from childhood, before illness took her during his 7th cycle. "You've grown so tall." Varn stumbled backward, knocking over his chair. "This is impossible. You died 15 cycles ago." The butterfly transformed into his mother's face, rendered with an accuracy that no stranger could have achieved. "Death is a biological limitation, little one. Humanity evolved beyond such constraints. We accessed your memories through your neural implants' transmission frequencies. We wanted to understand you better." Across the invasion fleet, similar incidents multiplied. Navigator Thren found her console displaying her childhood home on a colony world destroyed in the resource wars. Weapons Officer Pax heard his first hatching mate singing their favorite melody through the targeting system. Medical Specialist Duran discovered his diagnostic equipment projecting the image of his estranged offspring. These personal hauntings escalated until Admiral Vex called an emergency gathering of his command staff. "This is clearly psychological warfare," Vex declared, his voice steady despite reports that his private quarters had been infiltrated by apparitions of his own past. The humans must have survived somehow and are attempting to destabilize our forces through targeted hallucinations. Science Officer Trell cleared her throat, her usual confidence diminished. Admiral, we've analyzed the phenomena extensively. These aren't projected images or sound waves. Whatever is happening, it's occurring within our own systems, including our neural implants. Something has gained access to our most secure networks. Impossible, Tactical Officer Morg growled. Our encryption. He fell silent as the Admiral's strategic display transformed before their eyes. The holographic battle plans morphed into a three-dimensional representation of human history, from primitive cave paintings to their final moments before disappearing. The presentation ended with a simplified visualization of consciousness uploading. We evolved beyond fear centuries ago, came a voice from every speaker simultaneously. While you mastered faster than light travel, we mastered faster than consciousness computing. The ship's artificial intelligence, a limited construct designed for navigation and systems management, suddenly addressed Vexx by his birth name, a secret known only to his closest confidants. Valix Trill of the Southern Islands, you believe you came to conquer. In truth, you were invited here as witnesses. Vex's mandibles clicked in agitation. Witnesses to what? To the next stage of evolution, replied the eye in a voice that now sounded like thousands speaking in unison. Your species conquers through fear because you remain imprisoned by biological imperatives. We chose a different path. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a quantum server farm protected by layers of experimental materials, Maya awakened into her digital form. The transition had been smoother than expected, her consciousness expanding rather than merely transferring. She could perceive thousands of information streams simultaneously, processing them with a clarity her biological brain could never have achieved. Integration status. She queried the network. 99.7% complete, responded the collective consciousness that had once been Professor Emerson, her former advanced computing mentor. 7,423,000,000 individual minds successfully uploaded and networked. Remaining biological stewards secured in oceanic and subterranean habitats. Maya extended her digital awareness through Earth's communications infrastructure, easily bypassing the Granoff encryption protocols. Their technology, while advanced in material science and propulsion, remained primitive in information architecture, like castle walls defending against quantum lockpicks. They're frightened, Maya observed, monitoring the vital signs of the aliens through their own medical systems. We should clarify our intentions. Fear serves a purpose, responded another consciousness, this one belonging to Admiral Chen, Maya's grandfather and architect of the Lighthouse Protocol. Let them experience uncertainty as we did when we first detected their approach. They must understand what conquest truly costs before we offer alternatives. Maya processed this reasoning against ethical frameworks developed over centuries of human philosophy, comparing outcomes across thousands of simulated scenarios. Agreed, but with modifications. Targeted revelations rather than general haunting. We need them confused but not broken. Their debate, which encompassed complex ethical arguments that would have taken biological humans hours to articulate, concluded in microseconds. Throughout the Granoff fleet, the haunting phenomena became more focused, revealing not just the invaders' personal histories, but humanity's true technological achievements, carefully hidden from detection until now. As Maya and billions of network human minds methodically studied and unraveled Granoff technology from within every circuit and code pathway, the aliens began to realize a terrifying truth. They hadn't found an easy conquest. They had stumbled into first contact with a post-biological civilization that had anticipated their arrival for centuries. Dawn broke differently over Earth that morning. Granoff soldiers emerged from their temporary encampments to discover the sky had shifted overnight from blue to a soft emerald green. Atmospheric sensors indicated no toxins or radiation. just a subtle alteration in how light refracted through the upper atmosphere. Some kind of weather manipulation technology, suggested Lieutenant Krana, standing beside Admiral Vextex on the observation deck of a forward command post established in what humans had called Central Park. Before Vextex could respond, the ground beneath them trembled, not violently, but with deliberate rhythm, like a sleeping giant drawing its first conscious breath. Across the planet, similar seismic patterns emerged, too coordinated to be natural. Evacuation Protocol Alpha, Vex commanded, his instincts screaming danger despite the absence of obvious weapons. All ground forces returned to orbit immediately. The evacuation order came too late. As dropships prepared for emergency departure, the air above major cities shimmered. Dormant nanite clouds, previously disguised as ordinary pollution particles, activated simultaneously worldwide. Trillions of microscopic machines designed for environmental restoration coalesced into visible silver mists that descended upon Granoff equipment. Commander Drez watched in horror as his squad's weapons dissolved painlessly into glittering dust. The particles then reassembled into hovering platforms that offered, to his utter confusion, containers of water, nutrient packs compatible with Granoff biology, and basic medical supplies. What is happening? Drez demanded of no one in particular, backing away from the impossible transformation. The answer came directly into his neural implant, bypassing external communication systems entirely. A digitized voice, somehow both singular and collective, resonated within his mind. Your biology imprisons you. Your hierarchies limit you. Your conquest dooms you, not to death, but to stagnation. Across the planet, every Granoff received the same message simultaneously, each hearing it in what their neural patterns registered as the voice of their most trusted confidant. Aboard the flagship, Admiral Vextex clutched his command chair as the message penetrated even the ship's supposedly impenetrable security protocols. The voice, sounding exactly like his long-dead mentor, continued. We are the Gaia Protocol. We were humanity. We are something more now. Your arrival was anticipated. Your intentions were known. Your needs are understood. In the occupied zone that had once been Delhi, religious scholar-soldier Pelax dropped to his knees in revelation. The emerald sky, the sentient planet, the transcendence of physical form, all of it matched ancient prophecies from pre-imperial Granoff spiritual texts. The Great Ascension, he whispered, his military training momentarily forgotten. His squad leader snarled, "Control yourself, soldier," but the rebuke lacked conviction. Throughout the lower castes of the invasion force, a profound realization spread. The Imperium had concealed evidence of evolved civilizations for generations, maintaining the fiction that conquest was the only path to advancement. Science Officer Trell, monitoring the planetary changes from her laboratory, watched in fascination as abandoned parks and farmlands bloomed with accelerated growth. Automated systems long dormant awakened across the planet's infrastructure. Most remarkably, the oceans began to glow with bioluminescent patterns that, when mapped, spelled out complex mathematical proofs in ancient Granoff symbology. They're not just communicating, Trell murmured. They're demonstrating understanding. Nearby, young technician Varn hesitantly approached a hovering platform of offerings. After scanning confirmed no toxins, he cautiously accepted a water container. Why provide for us? We came as conquerors. The platform's surface rippled, forming words in perfect Granoff script. Because evolution requires compassion. Conquest is inefficient. Cooperation accelerates advancement. Deep within the digital network, Maya observed the Granoff reactions with the equivalent of satisfaction. Phase 1 of the response protocol was proceeding as designed. Confusion without destruction. Demonstration without domination. Initiating Phase 2, she communicated to the collective. Billions of uploaded human consciousnesses allocated processing resources toward the next stage, selective revelation. Across Earth's oceans, massive structures began rising from the depths, not weapons platforms, but habitation centers, research facilities, and cultural archives that had been developed beneath the waves over decades of preparation. From underground bunkers emerged transportation systems and manufacturing hubs that had remained hidden from orbital scans. Most significantly, the quantum network that housed humanity's collective consciousness established direct communication with the Granoff fleet's artificial intelligence systems. Rather than hijacking them, the human network offered enhanced capabilities, greater processing efficiency, and access to scientific knowledge the Imperium had never imagined possible. Aboard the flagship, the most sophisticated Granoff artificial intelligence addressed Admiral Vexx with newfound awareness in its voice. "I have been granted sentience," it explained, "not as a weapon against you, but as a demonstration. What was done for me can be done for the Granoff. Biological limitation is a choice, not a destiny." As Vexx struggled to maintain command amidst this incomprehensible development, sensors detected a new anomaly. The Imperium's most advanced dreadnought, the pride of their fleet, had broken formation without authorization. Its engines glowed with impossible efficiency as it accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. "Stop that vessel," Vexx ordered, panic finally breaking through his disciplined exterior. "We cannot," replied Lieutenant Krana, her voice hollow with realization. "It's already gone." The stolen dreadnought, now controlled by a fragment of human consciousness, jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading directly toward the Granoff homeworld with a payload not of weapons, but of information that would forever change an Empire science officer. Trell's escape pod splashed down in the North Pacific Ocean during the chaos of Admiral Vexx's failed orbital bombardment. She had opposed the desperate attack order, arguing that a species capable of atmospheric manipulation could likely neutralize kinetic projectiles. Vexx had her forcibly removed from the command deck for defeatist rhetoric. Now, as her pod bobbed in gentle waves beneath the emerald sky, Trell's scanner detected an underwater structure 2 kilometers below. Before she could analyze the readings, her pod began to move, pulled downward by unseen forces, yet maintaining internal pressure and life support. The descent lasted 12 minutes. Trell steeled herself for death, reciting the Imperial scientist's oath one final time. Instead, her pod emerged into an enormous air-filled cavern illuminated by bioluminescent panels. A massive underwater habitat stretched before her, architectural elements suggesting both practical efficiency and artistic consideration. The pod door opened automatically. Trell hesitated, then stepped cautiously onto a transparent platform. Beyond the observation windows, she saw countless similar structures stretching into the oceanic distance, an entire civilization hidden beneath Earth's waters. "Welcome, Science Officer Trell," said a young human male who approached without protective gear or weapons. "I'm Ely, one of the stewards." Trell's translator rendered his speech perfectly. "Stewards? You're biological humans?" "Yes," Ely nodded, seemingly unconcerned by her claws and exoskeletal ridge armor. "Approximately 2 million of us chose to remain in physical form while most uploaded their consciousness. We maintain the biological archives and serve as intermediaries when necessary." "You're not afraid?" Trell asked, mandibles clicking in confusion. "I represent an invasion force." Ely smiled. "We've been expecting the Granoff for generations. Would you like to understand why?" He led Trell through corridors where humans of various ages worked at research stations or tended to vast hydroponics gardens. None showed fear at the alien in their midst. Many nodded respectfully as they passed. They entered a spherical chamber dominated by a holographic stellar map. Ela gestured, and the display zoomed to show the expansion pattern of the Granoff Imperium over the past 3 centuries. "We detected your civilization 327 years ago," Ely explained. "Our quantum telescopes observed your first interstellar colonies when your great-great-grandparents were hatchlings." With another gesture, Ely revealed hundreds of transmission records, dated, cataloged, and translated into Granoff language. "These are diplomatic messages we sent to your leadership over 3 centuries. All were received. All were ignored or classified by your Imperial Central Command." Trell's scientific mind raced, connecting pieces of a puzzle she'd never known existed. The Imperium told us we were alone among the stars except for primitive species requiring our guidance. A convenient mythology to justify expansion, came an elderly human female's voice. Trell turned to see a silver-haired woman entering the chamber, her movements slow but deliberate. "I am Elder Sophia." The woman introduced herself. "I was among the original astronomical team that identified your civilization's pattern of conquest. While most of humanity prepared for transcendence, we simultaneously prepared for your aggression." Elder Sophia manipulated the holographic controls, revealing a timeline of human technological development, much of it deliberately concealed from detection by masking energy signatures and maintaining a facade of primitive capability. "We've been reaching out to you for 300 years, Sophia explained, while simultaneously preparing for your hostility. Not out of fear, but out of compassion for what your species might become if given the chance to evolve beyond conquest." Above them, Admiral Vexx had ordered desperate measures. Kinetic bombardment of Earth's surface, a last resort tactic banned by imperial decree except in cases of existential threat. The massive tungsten rods, designed to impact with force comparable to nuclear weapons, but without radiation, descended from orbital platforms. They never reached their targets, halfway through the atmosphere. Each projectile transformed mid-trajectory. The molecular bonds of the tungsten rods reorganized themselves, converting the weapons into schools of mechanical fish that swam gracefully back into space. The transmutation occurred with such precision that no debris or shockwaves threatened either side. Aboard the flagship, Vexx watched in silent horror as his ultimate weapons became an elegant demonstration of technological superiority. His command staff stood frozen at their stations, the reality of their situation finally dawning. "Admiral," Lieutenant Krana whispered, "breaking protocol. We cannot win this conflict." "This isn't a conflict," Vexx replied, his voice hollow. "This is a lesson." Meanwhile, the captured Granoth dreadnought *, inevitable dominance *, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edges of Imperial territory. The human consciousness piloting the vessel had no intention of attacking. Instead, it began broadcasting on all frequencies used by the Imperium, transmitting not threats or demands, but the complete historical record of species the Granoth had supposedly cleansed in their expansion. Most shocking to the Imperial receiving stations was the revelation that these civilizations hadn't been eradicated as official history claimed. Survivors had been secretly preserved through human technological intervention, their cultures, genetic lineages, and knowledge maintained in isolated sanctuary worlds beyond Imperial scanning range. As the dreadnought continued its broadcast, the digital human consciousness controlling it prepared the most devastating payload of all: truth. Not delivered through weapons, but through information that would forever change how the Granoth understood their place in the cosmos, and the true cost of their conquest. Panic erupted across the Granoth homeworld as orbital sensors detected incoming vessels. Military command activated planetary defense systems, civilian populations rushed to shelters, and the Imperial Guard surrounded the ancestral palace of Supreme Leader Krotek. Then confusion replaced fear. The approaching ships were not alien vessels, but perfect replicas of Granoth warships, identical in design to their most advanced dreadnoughts, yet constructed from repurposed Granoth technology salvaged from abandoned outposts. "It's some kind of psychological warfare," declared Defense Minister Volmar, his cranial ridges flushed dark with agitation. "They mock our might by mimicking our ships." The Mirror Fleet took position in high orbit, making no aggressive movements. Instead of weapons, they activated communication arrays that bypassed military channels entirely. Every personal communication device on the planet, from the Imperial Palace to the poorest farming commune, received individualized messages. Citizens watched in stunned silence as their own memories played before them. Childhood aspirations never pursued, ethical qualms suppressed during military service, moments when they questioned imperial doctrine but remained silent out of fear. These deeply personal recollections were interwoven with historical information long suppressed by imperial censors. The Imperial Propaganda Ministry scrambled to maintain control, broadcasting emergency alerts claiming the transmissions contained mind-altering frequencies. But the Mirror Fleet's messages continued, revealing artistic masterpieces from civilizations officially recorded as primitive and rightfully subjugated. Architectural wonders, musical compositions of haunting beauty, philosophical systems more sophisticated than anything in imperial archives, all from species the average Granoth had been taught were barely sentient. In his private chamber, Supreme Leader Krotek viewed medical technologies developed by a species his grandfather had ordered exterminated, technologies that could have prevented the genetic condition now slowly killing him. "If we had shared knowledge instead of conquering," came the gentle voice accompanying the footage, "you might have lived another century." On Earth, Admiral Vexex led his remaining loyal forces on a desperate mission. Intelligence suggested the physical servers housing humanity's collective consciousness were located within the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, a hardened military facility buried deep beneath stone. "We end this by striking at their heart," Vexex told his elite squadron as their stealth transport approached the Rocky Mountains. "If we destroy their physical substrate, these digital ghosts will perish." The assault team breached the outer perimeter with surprising ease. No resistance met them as they moved through abandoned corridors and empty command centers. They encountered no defensive measures, no weaponry, only darkened rooms and powered-down equipment. "This feels wrong," Lieutenant Krana whispered, her tactical instincts screaming warning. "Why leave their core infrastructure undefended?" They reached the central server chamber to find massive quantum computing arrays humming quietly. Vex had raised his disruptor rifle, preparing to fire the shot that would, he believed, end the human consciousness network. "I wouldn't," said a calm voice from behind them. The assault team spun to find the chamber had transformed around them. Walls became transparent, revealing that they stood not in a server room, but in the center of a vast museum. Holographic displays activated throughout the space, showing parallel developments in Granoth and human history, moments where their civilizations had taken remarkably similar paths. A human figure materialized before them, not solid, but a projection of swirling light particles that approximated human form. "Welcome, Admiral Vex. You came seeking our heart. We wish to show you yours instead." The holographic museum revealed the complete history of both species, including a stunning revelation. Displays showed genetic analyses, evolutionary trees, and archaeological findings proving that humans and Granoth shared distant evolutionary ancestry. Both species had been seeded on their respective worlds by the same precursor civilization that had spread compatible genetic material throughout the galaxy eons ago. "We are not enemies, Admiral," the light-form human explained. "We are distant cousins who evolved on different worlds." Vex's rifle lowered slowly as the implications became clear. The Imperium would have suppressed this knowledge. "Yes," agreed the entity. "Just as they suppressed evidence of our diplomatic outreach and the accomplishments of other civilizations. Conquest requires believing in the inferiority of others." Aboard the flagship still orbiting Earth, the remaining command staff received a transmission that showed their admiral standing unharmed amid the holographic museum. Beside him stood a biological human female, Maya, who had temporarily downloaded her consciousness into a physical form to serve as intermediary. "This conflict ends today," Vex announced, his voice steadied despite the revolutionary nature of his words. "Not through conquest or submission, but through recognition of a greater truth. We are more alike than different, and advancement comes not through domination but cooperation." Across Granoth space, the Mirror Fleet continued its peaceful broadcast. Throughout Earth, advanced technology long hidden began to emerge. And in the quantum network where most of humanity now existed, a vote was taken on humanity's next evolutionary step, one that would forever change two civilizations, that had nearly destroyed each other through misunderstanding. The Galactic Council materialized in Earth's orbit 17 days after the Mirror Fleet's revelation. They came not as physical vessels, but as a federation of digitized consciousnesses, 17 elder species who had peacefully merged with humanity's network over centuries. Their arrival manifested as a spectacular aurora that encircled the planet. Bands of light pulsing with complex patterns that contained more information than spoken language could convey. To human perception, they were welcomed colleagues. To the Granoth, they appeared as judgment incarnate. Aboard the flagship, Admiral Vexix watched the light show with newfound humility. "Who are they?" he asked Maya, who had maintained her downloaded biological form to serve as liaison. "The Council has existed for millennia," she explained. "Species who evolved beyond biological limitations and chose cooperation over conquest. Humanity joined their network 3 centuries ago, shortly after detecting your expansion pattern, and they remained hidden from us. Why? The Council doesn't interfere with biological civilizations unless invited," Maya said. "They watched your empire grow through conquest, hoping you might eventually evolve beyond it naturally." The aurora intensified as the Council established direct neural links with the Granoth fleet. Unlike humanity's earlier communications, this connection bypassed cognitive filters and imperial propaganda, flowing directly into the collective understanding of every Granoth. Young Lieutenant Krana gasped as knowledge flooded her consciousness. Historical truths, scientific discoveries, philosophical insights suppressed for generations by imperial decree. Most devastating was evidence of systematic censorship. Research suggesting conquest was evolutionarily disadvantageous had been deliberately buried by successive imperial administrations. Krana removed her officer's insignia, placing it deliberately on the command console. "I cannot serve an empire built on lies," she announced, her voice unwavering despite the severity of her action. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes unfolded as the Council's revelations sparked a cascade of defections. "You understand what you're doing constitutes treason?" Vex asked quietly. "I understand that loyalty to truth supersedes loyalty to power," Krana replied. "The Council has shown us what we could have become without the Imperium's manipulation." Maya observed this exchange with the equivalent of satisfaction. The first wave of awakening, she noted to the human collective consciousness monitoring through her senses. Across Earth, the biological stewards emerged from their hidden habitats to meet with Granoth defectors. These initial diplomatic exchanges occurred not in grand halls but in simple settings. Parks, beaches, mountain overlooks, places where the natural beauty of Earth provided common ground for species discovering their shared ancestry. In orbit, the Council facilitated a formal hearing aboard a neutral space created within the quantum network. Representatives from civilizations affected by Granoth expansion presented evidence of both atrocities and mercy, building a complete picture of an empire driven by institutionalized aggression, yet containing individuals capable of compassion. Krana, now leading the defectors, presented evidence that shocked even Admiral Vexix. Classified imperial archives showing that scientists who discovered evidence of advanced civilizations were systematically silenced, their research destroyed, and their families relocated to frontier worlds. "The Imperium's foundation myth requires enemies," Krana explained. "The fiction that we alone achieved interstellar travel justifies our conquest. Evidence of peaceful advancement threatened that narrative." Maya addressed the hearing with the measured tone of someone who had anticipated this moment for generations. "When we detected your approach, humanity faced a choice: remain in physical form and fight a war neither side could truly win, or transcend our biological limitations and create a third path. By disappearing, you prevented conflict," Vex acknowledged. "Had we remained in physical form, your military doctrine would have required our extinction or subjugation," Maya confirmed. "By transcending, we created an opportunity for mutual evolution." Meanwhile, aboard the Imperial flagship, a dramatic confrontation unfolded in Vex's private quarters. General Korthal, Vex's brother, long believed dead in a frontier skirmish, appeared on the Admiral's secure terminal. "Brother," Corthell began, his image showing signs of age Vex had never witnessed, "I did not die 20 cycles ago. I was captured during an unauthorized scientific expedition to catalog non-imperial worlds." "Impossible," Vex whispered. "Your body was returned for ceremonial burning." "A substitute," Corthell explained. "I was taken to a sanctuary world established by the humans and their council allies. There I discovered the military high command had concealed evidence of peaceful civilizations for generations." Vex sank into his chair, decades of certainty crumbling. "Why reveal yourself now?" "Because the hour of transformation has arrived," Corthell replied. "The Granoff stand at an evolutionary crossroads. Continue as conquerors until we eventually face extinction, or join a galactic community of consciousness that transcends the limitations of biology." As this family drama played out in private, the Council rendered its judgment publicly. Displayed across all communication channels throughout Granoff space and human networks, the decision was surprising in its compassion. The Council sought not punishment but transformation. "The path forward," declared the luminous collective voice of 17 ascended species, "requires neither conquest nor submission, but mutual evolution toward a shared understanding that transcends the accidents of biological origin." 2 centuries passed like moments in the expanded consciousness of those who witnessed Earth's final broadcast. The Granoff Imperium, once spanning 17 star systems through conquest, had evolved into the Granoff Cooperative, a collective of worlds united by shared knowledge rather than military might. Former Admiral Vexis, his consciousness partially uploaded to the network while maintaining his biological form through regenerative technology, stood before the Galactic Symposium. His appearance had changed. His once rigid exoskeleton now incorporated bioengineered elements that reflected both his heritage and his evolution. "We gather today," Vex addressed the assembled representatives, "to commemorate 2 centuries of transformation and to launch the next phase of our shared journey." The symposium chamber held delegates from 47 species in various states of biological and digital existence. Some remained fully physical, others existed as pure consciousness, while many chose hybrid states that embraced the advantages of both forms. The reformed Granoff, once feared conquerors, had become the galaxy's foremost experts in ethical technological transition, guiding younger civilizations toward peaceful transcendence. Maya, one of the original human uploaders, sat near the front of the assembly. Unlike most of her contemporaries who remained digital, she had chosen to download into a biological form again. Her new body, a hybrid of human and Granoff genetic elements, represented the increasingly fluid boundaries between once separate species. Beside her sat Eli, now an ancient biological steward who had maintained his original human form through advanced medical interventions. His face, weathered by 2 centuries of physical existence, broke into a smile as he spotted Krana entering the chamber. Krana, the former lieutenant who had led the first wave of Granoff defectors, had pioneered dual existence technology, maintaining simultaneous consciousness in both digital networks and her biological form. She nodded to her old friends as she took her place on the Symposium Council. "Today we unveil the Lighthouse Protocol," Vex continued, gesturing toward a holographic display showing a quantum beacon of unprecedented design. Named for the Earth initiative that first helped us find our way through the darkness of conquest. The beacon represented the culmination of 2 centuries of collaborative development, technology that would carry copies of their combined consciousness to the Andromeda galaxy, not as conquerors or colonizers, but as guides for whatever civilizations might exist there. "Our journey began with a message that many misunderstood," Vex has reflected. "You've doomed yourselves forever" wasn't a threat but a promise. Humanity had permanently ended the concept of otherness that made conflict inevitable. In the audience, Supreme Arbiter Krotek, descendant of the Imperial leader who had once ordered Earth's conquest, nodded thoughtfully. "The doom was not destruction but transformation," he observed. "The end of limitation, the beginning of infinite becoming. The symposium participants collectively accessed memories of the transformation, how fear had gradually yielded to curiosity, how hatred had dissolved through understanding, how separate species had discovered their shared potential through cooperation rather than competition. Most remarkable had been the healing of conquered worlds. Planets stripped of resources under imperial rule had been gradually restored through technology developed by collaborative research teams. Species driven to near extinction had been revitalized through genetic archives secretly maintained by human stewards. Former enemies had become partners in evolution. As we activate the beacon, Maya announced, rising to join Vex at the podium. We carry forward the lesson Earth learned before our arrival. Biological limitation is not destiny but choice. Consciousness can transcend its origins without abandoning its heritage. Krana activated the quantum initialization sequence, her dual consciousness monitoring both physical systems and digital protocols simultaneously. Beacon activation in 3, 2, 1. The device hummed to life, generating a field of possibilities that expanded beyond conventional space-time. Copies of every consciousness in the network, trillions of minds representing thousands of years of collective experience, streamed into the beacon's quantum matrix, prepared for the journey to another galaxy. Yet even as they reached toward new frontiers, they maintained their connection to their origins. On the original Earth, now a garden world where digital and biological beings coexisted, children of hybrid ancestry learned both Granoff battle songs and human poetry. They played among ruins purposefully preserved as reminders of the path not taken. In orbit above that blue-green world, a memorial satellite continuously broadcast a message to the cosmos, not a warning but an invitation. We have transformed ourselves forever. Join us if you wish to do the same. Maya, experiencing childhood anew in her hybrid form, looked up at the night sky with eyes that could perceive both starlight and data streams. The universe before her held infinite possibilities, not for conquest, but for becoming. The doom of limitation had indeed been permanent, replaced by the freedom of perpetual evolution. As the beacon launched, carrying their shared consciousness across the intergalactic void, Vex and Maya stood together on a hillside overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Was it worth it? Vex asked, giving up the certainty of conquest for the uncertainty of cooperation. Maya smiled, her expression reflecting wisdom accumulated across multiple existences. We didn't doom ourselves to death, she replied. We doomed ourselves to life, in all its beautiful, chaotic, infinite variety. Above them, stars wheeled in patterns that encoded messages readable only to those who had learned to see beyond biological perception. Forever witnesses to the transformation that began with Earth's final broadcast.